रास्ता के मन्ने रास्ता के मन्ने इदं ते मुखं बोधं अत्यन्तनीले रास्ता के मन्ने
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining this morning. The topic for this morning's class is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 2.96. And I see we already have His Grace Balbhadra Prabhu from ISKCON Atlanta. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you.
Thank
you, Prabhu, for being here this morning. Whenever you are ready, Prabhu, we can start.
Okay. Thank you, Haribol. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Ite Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachardine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskatya Desatadine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivas Adi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivas Adi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Haribo 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Paribraja Kacharya Sutarazata Sri Shrimad's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Paribraja Kacharya Astutarazata Sri Shrimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Go Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinatha Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Nilachala Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Sarat Bihari Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Sankirtan Jagna Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 2, text 96. Krishnera Sarupa Ar Shakti Traya Gyan Yan Rahai Trana Nahi Krishne Te Agyan. Krishnera Sarupa Ar Shakti Traya Gyan Yan Rahai Tanra Nahi Krishne Te Agyan. Krishnera Sarupa Ar Shakti Traya Gyan Yan Rahai Tanra Nahi Krishne Te Agyan. Someone else would like to try?
Krishna Swarupa Ara Shakti Trayagyan Yanha Janla Haya Tanra Nahi Krishna Te Agyan. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Krishna Swarup Ar Shakti Traya Gyan Yan Rahai Tanra Nahi Krishna Ta Gyan. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Word for word. Krishnera of Lord Krishna, Swarupa, the real nature, Ara, and Shakti Traya, of the three energies, Gyan, knowledge, Yanra, whose, Haya, there is, Tanra, of him, Nahi, there is not, Krishnete, in Lord Krishna, Agyana, ignorance. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. One who knows the real feature of Sri Krishna and his three different energies cannot remain ignorant about him. Report. Srila Jiva Goswami states in his Bhagavat Sandarbha 16 that by his potencies, which act in natural sequences, beyond the scope of the speculative human mind, the supreme transcendence, the summum bonum, eternally and simultaneously exist in four transcendental features. His personality, his impersonal effulgence, particles of his potency, the living beings, and the principal cause of all causes. The supreme whole is compared to the sun, which also exist in four features, namely the personality of the sun god, the glare of his glowing spear, the sun rays inside the sun planet, and the sun's reflections in many other objects. The ambition to corroborate the existence of the transcendental absolute truth by limited conjectural endeavors cannot be fulfilled, because he is beyond the scope of our limited speculative minds. In an honest search for truth, we must admit that his powers are inconceivable to our tiny brains. The exploration of space has demanded the work of the greatest scientist of the world. Yet, there are countless problems regarding even fundamental knowledge of the material creation that bewilder scientists who confront them. Such material knowledge is far removed from the spiritual nature, and therefore the acts and arrangements of the absolute truth are beyond all doubts inconceivable. The primary potencies of the absolute truth are mentioned to be three: internal, external, and marginal. By the acts of his internal potency, the personality of Godhead in his original form exhibits the spiritual cosmic manifestation known as the Vaikuntha Lokas, which exist eternally, even after the destruction of the material cosmic manifestation. By his marginal potency, the Lord expands himself as living beings who are part of him, just as the sun distributes its rays in all directions. By his external potency, the Lord manifests the material creation, just as the sun with its rays creates fog. The material creation is but a perverse reflection of the eternal Vaikuntha nature. These three energies of the absolute truth are also described in the Vishnu Purana, where it is said that the living being is equal in quality to the internal potency, whereas the external potency is indirectly controlled by the chief cause of all causes. Maya, the illusory energy, misleads a living being as fog misleads a pedestrian by blocking off the light of the sun. Although the potency of Maya is inferior in quality, inferior in quality to the marginal potency, which consists of the living beings. I want to read that again. Although the potency of Maya is inferior in quality to the marginal potency, which consists of the living beings who are part and parcel of the Lord, it nevertheless has the power to control the living beings, just as fog can block the actions of a certain portion of the sun's rays, although it cannot cover the sun. The living beings covered by the illusory energy evolve in different species of life, with bodies ranging from that of an insignificant ant to that of Brahma, the constructor of the cosmos. The pradhana, the chief cause of all causes in the impersonal vision, is none other than the Supreme Lord, whom one can see face to face in the internal potency. He takes the material, all-pervasive form by his inconceivable power. Although all three potencies, namely internal, external, and marginal, are essentially one and the ultimate issue, they are different in action, like electric energy, which can produce both cold and heat under different conditions. The external and marginal potencies are so called under various conditions, but in the original internal potencies, there are no such conditions, nor is it possible for the conditions of the external potency to exist in the marginal, or vice versa. One who is able to understand the intricacies of all these energies of the Supreme Lord can no longer remain an empiric impersonalist under the influence of a poor fund of knowledge. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjanan Salakaya Chaksu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Go Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is a very elaborate purport with many different topics that are discussed, taking from the verse itself. One who knows the real feature of Shri Krishna, just on that first part, one who knows the real feature of Shri Krishna reminds me of the verse that we always chant or discuss with reference to Krishna's appearance and understanding it, which is Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evam Yo Vedi Tatutaha Taktva Deham Purna Janma Naiti Mam Etu Sorjana. So this verse from today, one who knows the real feature of Shri Krishna and his three different energies cannot remain ignorant about him. So that verse from Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, text 9, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode or Arjuna. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the Lord's descent from his transcendental abode is already explained in the 6th verse. One who can understand the truth of the appearance of the Supreme Person of the personality of Godhead is already liberated from material bondage, and therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting this present material body. So the ignorance, as Srila Prabhupada describes in this purport, comparing it to the fog that apparently covers the sun, but really does not. The sun is always there, but the fog presents an impediment, even though the fog is inferior to the sun and also to the persons trying to see or benefit from the sun. So in the same way, Maya, as Srila Prabhupada said, is inferior to the conditioned soul, but still Maya has the potency to block or confuse our understanding of the Supreme Lord. So the Lord is manifesting himself in so many different ways through his different energies, and he's present within those energies. They emanate from him, as Prabhupada gave the example of the sun. And what is the verse? Krishna Surya Samamaya Haya Andaka. That Krishna is like the sun, Maya is like darkness. So wherever there's sunshine, darkness cannot remain. Even the fog itself is dissipated by the actions of the sun. So when Krishna is there, manifest himself, manifest through his devotees, manifest through his words, or manifest in our own hearts and our own minds and thinking, then that Maya cannot stand. Maya is only there when we forget Krishna. I heard a nice example years ago from His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj. He said, the moment you forget Krishna, you're in Maya. The very second, the very moment you forget Krishna, Maya is there. She's there waiting to test/confuse. When I say that, because Maya is not our enemy. Maya is our friend. She's a devotee, but she has to make sure that we are not troublemakers for Krishna, causing trouble for Krishna. So to do that, she tests. So Krishna is testing us through the actions of Maya, because individually, being conditioned souls, Krishna's not dealing with us directly. He deals with us indirectly through his Maya. Even his instructions to us are indirect through the intelligence, as long as we're not pure, free from all motivation, free from, our devotional service becomes unalloyed devotional service. So Krishna's using that Maya, and she's testing us. She's putting all these so-called obstacles before us. They're just obstacles, but really, or realistically speaking, they're actually opportunities. Every so-called confusing circumstance, every suffering circumstance for a devotee, especially because we're gradually rising up in our understanding of our relationship with the Supreme. Everyone is being controlled by Krishna, there's no question of that, through his energy, Maya. But the devotees are being specifically tested to bring them to another level of understanding. Mamcha yob davicharena bhakti yogena sevate saguna samati taitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That we're rising up through this confusing modes of material nature. So we see it as an obstacle. We see it as a problem, but in reality it's a blessing. That's the development of Krishna consciousness, when we start to see Krishna's hand in everything, because his presence is everywhere. And for a devotee, it's all being done through Krishna's energy, but this is Krishna's wish for us, that we can gradually get free from the influences of Maya. And that is the knowledge that's being described here. Sometimes it could take a lifetime or many lifetimes. Bahunam janmanam ante gyanavanman prapajyate vasudeva sarvam iti samahatma sadulava. So that vasudeva sarvam iti, realizing that Vasudeva Krishna is everything, is not easy, but it's the goal of our pursuit of Krishna consciousness. It's a very interesting phrase that Srila Prabhupada mentions in this purport. Yes. He says the supreme whole is compared to the sun, which also exists in four features, namely the personality of the sun god, the glare of his glowing spear, the sun rays inside the sun planet, and the sun's reflections in many other objects. This sentence, this part of the sentence is very powerful. The ambition to corroborate the existence of the transcendental absolute truth by limited conjectural endeavors cannot be fulfilled because he is beyond the scope of our limited speculative minds. So that word ambition, it's hard to pursue a goal without ambition. One must be ambitious in order to achieve goals that are just outside the reach of our current capacity. For instance, if you want to become an educated person, you want to achieve certain degrees, PhD, so on and so forth, double PhD and all that, you have to be ambitious. You have to be ambitious to study, ambitious to research, to write, to communicate. So here, the Srila Prabhupada is using this word very strategically to open our thought process here. The ambition to cooperate. So what does that corroborate? That corroborating means that to confirm or give support. So what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to confirm that Krishna is real? Are we trying to confirm, corroborate that this philosophy is what Srila Prabhupada says it is? Are we trying to, in some senses, we want to master this philosophy? We want to convince ourselves that we made the right decision to align ourselves with Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON? Sometimes we might be in that mindset. I know I have been several times. I remember in the beginning, when I started in the 70s, I was always trying to find something in the books that would justify me remaining in a mood of sense gratification. I wanted that to be corroborated. I wanted Prabhupada to say, it's okay, Balabhadra, you can still do this or that and be Krishna conscious. But I never found it. After almost 50 years, I still haven't found it. What I find is Prabhupada guiding us through this difficult world. It's like a razor's edge. It's so dangerous at every step. So what is our motivation? What is our ambition here? I'm challenging all of us. What is our ambition in Krishna consciousness? You have to be ambitious. Life without ambition is kind of dull. So what is our, like Prabhupada's ambition was to get on that boat, take his Bhagavatams. In fact, before the boat actually went on the full journey, his ambition was to get his Bhagavatams. They were in, I forget which port. He had to pick up his Bhagavatams. So he had to do that. And even before that, his ambition was to complete the 3 volumes of the Bhagavatam. It took a lot of sacrifice on Srila Prabhupada's part. Going back and forth to Delhi to check the printing, make sure things are being done, purchasing paper, all of that requires ambition. His ambition was to follow the instructions of his Guru Maharaj, to take this vast wisdom of Vedic philosophy, specifically Bhakti Yoga, to the English-speaking world. He knew it was a challenge, just outside the realm of his current capabilities. English was not his first language. He mentions that in the beginning of the Bhagavatam. He had never been out of India, especially nowhere like England or America. He had no experience of all that. So, but he was ambitious, spiritually ambitious. So what is our ambition? We have to check it. We have to really look and see, what am I trying to achieve in this process of gaining knowledge of Krishna? There are some dangers on that path. We might become enticed by the jnana aspect of our philosophy and Krishna consciousness, acquiring knowledge, and then having the pride of the quote unquote jnanis, that I know this, I know that, I know verses, I know stories, I know pastimes, I know so many things. I know all the philosophies sequentially, but is that the real purpose that we should be ambitious to achieve? Vasudeva Sarvamiti. After many lifetimes, here we sit today. By some stroke of mercy, here we are. Brahmanda Brahmite Kon, Bhagavana Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai, Bhakti Lata Beach. That's why we should never forget the mercy of the Guru and those who represent the Guru, who have brought us to this Krishna consciousness. We're here by the mercy of the spiritual master, Krishna, and of course, devotees, sincere, genuine devotees. So then now we're here. What is our goal in pursuing this knowledge? I would say, from my perspective, the goal is to become more dedicated to serving Krishna. I just want to find tidbits of information that can help me improve my devotional service. Maybe not everything. Like this purport, I could, not me, but anyone could take any part of this purport and give a series of lectures. Believe me, there's so much in this purport. And the time does not permit to break down every aspect of it. So I'm just focusing on a certain part. When Prabhupada pointed out about this ambition of the persons to corroborate, to confirm something, busy in trying to confirm the existence of God. So we don't want to waste time like that. We don't want to try to confirm that Krishna is real unless we are not sure. See, like Arjuna in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita had no idea that Krishna was God. He didn't think Krishna was God. Krishna's his friend. Krishna's his cousin, brother-in-law. And then later on in the 11th chapter, he said, we sat on the bed together, we joked together, we ate together. I'm so embarrassed now that I understand who you are. Please forgive me. So he didn't know. So Krishna, we're not sure in one sense, as we're on this path, we're trying to corroborate whether or not Krishna is real. Because once we accept that he's real, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, that he's Supreme Personality of Godhead, then that should dictate our actions for the rest of our lifetime and for eternity. So that in itself is another element, which is how should we act, or how does one act who is transcendental in consciousness? And that was a question that Arjuna asked Krishna. How does he speak? How does he sit? How does he walk? Why is that brought up? Because if someone is transcendental in consciousness, that means their actions should change. It means my actions should change. How should I speak if I truly understand Krishna's in your hearts and Krishna's in my heart, and he's hearing what I'm saying, and he's in this conversation with us right now? How should I speak? Well, number one, I should be careful what I say. Number one, because I'm speaking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here is Chaitanya Charitamrita, the nectar of the living force in immortality, literally translated by Srila Prabhupada. So here we are speaking of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Supreme Personality of Godhead, who walked in the holy land of Navadvip Dham in Mayapur and Jagannath Puri and Vrindavan over 500 years ago. How should I even think about him? Should I think in a familiar way, like I know Lord Chaitanya, when in reality I know I don't remember. If I don't remember the relationship with Krishna that I and all of us have had or have from our spiritual eternal existence, I'm just trying to get steady on the path to whereby I allow Krishna consciousness to affect my life and change with the way I am, the way I think, the way I speak. So this is, to me, extremely important. As we gather this information, and let me say, it's actually the most important thing to hear this knowledge. Shravanam, Kirtanam, the most important thing is to hear. Our effort should be to increase the quantity and quality of our hearing. That doesn't mean that we should not try to analyze or corroborate. That word is so heavy, such a heavy word, corroborate, to confirm or give support. Now, to give support for us means when we're speaking about Krishna, we give verses, we give pastimes, we give references from Srila Prabhupada, so that we can confirm for the listener. As in the case of Arjuna, Arjuna did not need to see the universal form. Srila Prabhupada clearly explains that he did that for our sake, not his sake. He had already developed his faith in Krishna. In fact, Srila Prabhupada says in one purport, Arjuna was actually very happy to know that his friend Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was very happy to realize that my friend, Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So for us, as we're traversing this path of devotional service, we are trying to improve our devotion, the quality of our devotional service every day, at every moment. That is our ambition. It's like in the prayer, Lord Chaitanya saying, was it? Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitamba jagadisha kamaye. Mama Jamini Jamini Ishvare Bhavatat Bhakti Haitukitwi. I don't want anything else. I don't want a beautiful wife, wealth, followers. I don't want those things. All I want is Mama Jamini Jamini Ishvare, your service, your devotional service, life after life. And he also says in the Shikshastakam that Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. In that verse, he's saying that I am so unfortunate. You have manifested yourself in all these amazing names. You have hundreds of millions of names, and they're all potent, equally potent. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. So then the ambition would be to develop attraction for Krishna's holy names. So how do we do that? The same way anyone else does anything in this world, by practice, by endeavor, by repeated execution of the thing you want to do, whatever it might be. As I said from the beginning, if it's education, business, whatever. So we focus in on trying to improve that. How? I don't have the intelligence to comprehend Vedic knowledge. It's too vast. So then if I spend my life trying to corroborate, confirm, research the details of all the Vedic scriptures, trying to figure this out, if this is that and this, no. I should just take the elevator and go to the platform of service. Because we know from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Tesam satatayuktanam bhajitam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogantam enamam upayantite. When one serves me with love and affection, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So if we're after a deeper understanding, can we get there simply by research and trying to connect all the dots of Krishna consciousness? Many times people ask questions that are kind of out of the realm of what's practical for their life right now. You know, I'm trying to think of some examples. You know, in the spiritual world, am I like this? In the spiritual world, is this like that? And what about this? What about that? But in reality, if we focus on the essential elements of this Krishna consciousness, and as Rupa Goswami says, devotional service advancement depends upon the attitude of the practitioner. So we should focus in on our attitude. What is my attitude about Krishna? As I said a few minutes ago, am I acting in such a way? Am I acting in a familiar way with Krishna? Am I speaking in a familiar way with Krishna, a casual way with Krishna? If I understand who he is, how can I speak casually about Krishna? If I understand that he's Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. So then, what are some things that can help us on this journey? Some very interesting points here. One thing is Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita says, "My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy. I am now firm and free from doubt, and I'm prepared to act according to your instructions." So that's where we should, it's like the jump off point. Okay, Krishna, I'm ready. I'm accepting you as Supreme Personality of Godhead at this stage on faith, because I have not seen you move around directly. As I believe Rupa Goswami says, the perfection of the eyes is to see Krishna and Balaram entering the forest of Vrindavan. I haven't seen that. Maybe some of you have seen that, but I have not seen that. I've seen Vrindavan, but I have not seen that. It was quite interesting when I went to Vrindavan the first time in 1976, when I was walking down the road in front of our temple, Krishna Balaram, at night, coming from the temple to the Fogal ashram. I was always afraid that Krishna would come from behind the bushes because I'm in Vrindavan and Krishna's everywhere. So in a little naive way, I was thinking, oh my God, if Krishna were to appear, what would I do? So Krishna, we have, by virtue of accepting this process, most of us are chanting 16 rounds. Some of us are initiated. By virtue of that, we're wearing it on our sleeves. Krishna, I'm accepting you, as Arjuna said. So then, how do we surrender? What is the process of surrender? I love this verse, and it's quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Anukul yasya sankalpa, pratikul yasya varjanam, rakshishyatiti vishwasho, gop trip tve varanam tata, atma nikshepa karpanye, shad vidha sharanagati. The 6 divisions of surrender are the acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service, the rejection of unfavorable things, the connection, the conviction that Krishna will give protection, the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master, full self-surrender, and one of my favorite words, humility. This word humility comes up again in 13th chapter, verses 8 through 12, as one of the first qualities, first aspects of knowledge, amanitam, humility, one being humble. So then the first part of this 6 divisions is the one I want to focus in on, the accepting things favorable for our devotional service. Now, that's called accepting and rejecting. So the business of the mind is to accept and reject. And intelligence is actually helping us to discriminate what's good, what's bad. But the mind is always trying to enjoy. So the intelligence says, no, that's not enjoyment. That's dangerous. This is what you should be doing. So how do we get that kind of Krishna conscious intelligence that we can discriminate, the ability to discriminate what's good, what's bad, what's favorable to devotional service, what's not favorable? Sometimes we don't know. We don't know if such and such activity is favorable to devotional service. So then Krishna gives the key, the primer, the thing that can help us understand this. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 34, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire submissively. Now, you might say, well, my spiritual master is not here with me right now. I can't ask him questions. Well, let me let you in on a secret. I never asked Srila Prabhupada a single question, never had a single conversation with him, never got a single direct instruction from him, because Prabhupada told us that you can go to your senior devotees, God brothers and God sisters, and get the guidance, because they're more experienced, they're more practiced at accepting what Srila Prabhupada said. So then if I'm not sure whether it's something I should accept or reject, then I can go and get guidance or counseling. But I should practice this, accepting things favorable, rejecting things unfavorable. But I need to know what's favorable and what's unfavorable. Most of us have a sense of that. We know we should not take intoxication, all those things, negative things. But the subtle things that happen in our mind, the way we think about things within our movement, about other devotees, about the world around us, how should we act? How should we feel? So again, that depends on how much information that you've studied and heard, and then your relationships with devotees that can help guide you. But it's extremely important because, as I said, our goal is to improve our Krishna consciousness and come to the platform of unadulterated faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that faith should dictate how we act in life. It's based on how we act in life. If we continually commit offenses, it's difficult to make advancement. It's like trying to start a fire by putting water on it, or trying to put it out by putting gasoline on it. If we really want to make progress to that ultimate goal of Krishna consciousness, the pure love of God, which is the goal of the chanting, prema, that's the goal of this chanting. We know that Srila Prabhupada has told us in so many ways. That's the goal. Prema, pum artha, mohan. Artha means a benefit. Pum artha means a supreme benefit. What is the greatest benefit that we can get by dedicating our lives to Krishna and this movement? What is it? Prem. Now, at this stage, we may not be, or we may or may not be that interested in prem. At certain stages, we may be more interested in prestige. We may be more interested in, like I say, how we are viewed in the movement, the position that we have in the movement. And then we get distracted by Maya, even for devotees. Yes, Maya can be there for us, that cloud, that fog. And we get confused and we go after things. Ambition becomes something else. And then we are reminded by reading Prabhupada's books, listening to his lectures, listening to the devotees, we reminded prema, pum artha. The greatest benefit is prema. Then we have to go back, well, how can I attain prema? Well, learn the art, accept those things favorable, reject those things unfavorable, and just keep going through the steps. So I want to stop there. I know I covered a couple different points, and see if anyone has any comments or additions or just some reflections that you might have, because my goal in any class that I am part of is to either share some small thing that we can all remember, or catch some small thing that we can remember. I'll give a quick example. I think Geeta Mataji is on the call, but she gave the lecture in the Atlanta Temple on Sunday. And beautiful lecture, but can I say I remembered everything? No, but you know what I remembered? She gave the example of chanting with your bead bag. And we have this one finger remaining, right? We put it through our bead bag, right? And what we do with that finger, sometimes we start tapping on our cell phone or doing this and that while we're chanting. And we got that little free finger moving around, because the other ones are inside holding the bead. So she gave this beautiful graphic example, which reminded me, I do that sometimes. With my bead bag and that little finger, I'm doing so many little things with it, picking up a cup, tapping on your cell phone. So she reminded us, not good. The chanting should be focused. So I remember that from that lecture. The main point was focused chanting will bring the result. So as I said, in every lecture that I participate in, either giving it or listening, especially when I'm listening to Srila Prabhupada every morning, I'm looking for something that can help me improve. As I said many times, in business, they say the only question you should ask is, how can I improve upon that which I do every day? We chant every day. We read every day. We do some service, like now is Kartik. So every day we offer some candle. We try to do a little extra service. I think on Sunday, someone asked the question if it's 100 times benefit in Kartik, well, if I just chant one round, that becomes 100 rounds. I was like, and Geeta laughed at that one. It's like, what? No, you chant your 16 and you get 1,600 rounds. It's a wonderful blessing. Haribo, Anasuya. So it was very interesting. So my point, I'm trying to give you a practical example that when I hear a class, I look for something that can help me. I don't look for criticizing or trying to critique it. No, I'm just, can you help me? And practically every class I've ever heard, I found something, like a class I heard years and years ago by Hridayananda Maharaj, and the class was called How the Modes of Nature Rule Our Day. And he described that so amazingly, and how sometimes affected by the mode of passion, mode of goodness and ignorance. I had not understood it like that. And that helped me so much throughout the day to avoid the influence of passion or ignorance, and even goodness to a certain degree. So hopefully some of you got something today, or hopefully you can give something today that we can all benefit from. So I'll leave it up. I'll open the floor. Happy to see Anasuya there with us. And
Please accept my humble obeisance, Prabhu August Prabhupada.
There you go.
I just got a new service by Chandramani Swami on Tuesdays. He wants me to host his classes at 7 o'clock. So I have to juggle between that class and this class and pull Prikshit in and pull Krishna in to make it happen. So I apologize for missing your class.
No. That's nice service. Nice service.
Yeah, he got me engaged. So, but Prabhu, I have to play your class back again. But what I just heard just before I joined, how can we be aware that the modes are working throughout our day?
Yeah, well, going to the Bhagavad Gita and studying the three modes of material nature, the whole chapter describes that. You know, the qualities of ignorance, passion, just like lethargy. Sometimes you just feel lethargic, like, mode of ignorance. Sometimes we're just overactive. We want to do this and that, mode of passion. And sometimes we get into this mode like, I'm so happy and everything is so wonderful. Hey, you're sitting on a fire and you're talking about it's wonderful, this material world, come on. So we should always be a little bit of the passionate influence to get it done, which means in hearing and chanting, serving, Krishna consciousness. That takes a little passion, a little energy, ambition, sure. Ambition takes passion. So we transform the passion into something that we can use. We can accept and reject. Accept those things favorable. So when passion is favorable, I take it. When I'm like, kind of like out of it, then I get that little burst of energy. Okay, I accept it. I get motivated. It's like, how do you do Sankirtan without a level of passion? I mean, how in the world are you supposed to do? Because I did it for years. Then I knew it took a lot of, guts and energy and just going for it, man. Just like, and we were passionate, super passionate, but for Krishna consciousness. So things can be used. Now, the mode of ignorance is a little hard to use, a little difficult to employ the mode of ignorance. I'm trying to think of some elements of the mode of, I can't even think of an element of the mode of ignorance that's useful, except sleep. We have to get enough sleep to take care of our bodies. But goodness and passion can be used and transformed and engage in Krishna's service. So yeah, knowing what the qualities are of those modes and then examining what we do in context to those modes will help us. I gave the example, I believe, in this forum of what Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj taught us when he was living in Atlanta as a brahmachari. We were so fortunate to be brahmacharis living with Bhakti Swarup Damodar Prabhu at that time. We could ask him any question. So we were, as brahmacharis, you get affected by sexual desires and all those kind of passions and things. So we asked him about that. And he said, well, two things he mentioned. He said in his village, when he was a young boy, that the brahmacharis would come out and they would never look beyond their feet in a public square. Never. They were always like that. So after I heard that, I used to practice that. And I would laugh. I said, I didn't know what the Maharajas looked like. I just knew what their feet sounded like because I never looked at their faces. Because he told us, in the public, where there's women, look down at your feet. So that was interesting. But the other thing he taught us, which anyone can apply, he said, if a desire comes in your heart, something that is not acceptable, then you should analyze it. Analyzing something means analyze against what? The principles of Krishna consciousness. So I analyzed this desire. What are the good and bad results of this? And I always tell devotees about this Ben Franklin method. Make a list of the positives and the negatives if I do this. And if the negatives are more, then you don't do it. Positives are more, then you do it. So he said, you analyze. And he said, by the time you finish your analysis of that thing, it'll be gone. Whether it's sex or money or what, it'll just be gone because you've now gone through that process. Oh, and I wanted to share that verse from Bhagavad Gita. Krishna tells Arjuna, and I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. Verse 70 of chapter 18. So then we're using our intelligence because we've studied Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. We've heard from Srila Prabhupada. And we're looking at this thing that I want to do, and I'm analyzing what's going to happen if I do it. A practical example for me is when I was inspired to get involved with two things, the interfaith movement and the UFO Society. One of the people that I called was Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, because I knew he was very much open to different things. And I told this story before. I had read this book, Aliens Among Us. The lady's name was Ruth Montgomery. And it fascinated me because in the book, it talked about this guy who said he saw Krishna in his kitchen one day. And I was like, whoa, this is interesting. So then I called Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj the next day and I asked him about this book and the whole concept. He said, Prabhupada, that's interesting. I bought that same book yesterday myself. True story. Because we both were researching. Why were we researching? Because we knew when they talk about extraterrestrials, they're talking about demigods possibly. Everyone off this planet that we believe in from our books is an extraterrestrial. So all we have to do is figure out how to take that interest of the people, connect it to our philosophy. It was very interesting how that worked, So knowing and having that knowledge and that understanding, we can discriminate what should we do and what should we not do. In cases of doubt, like I didn't know if I should pursue that whole path of, the whole UFO community, the interfaith community. So I went to a senior godbrother. And the interfaith community, I had my realization from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur reading, because see, this is what happens. Devotees read different books and they get different ideas and they want to implement it, okay? So I was reading Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and he said, if you find yourself in someone's temple, church, or mosque, you should think like this. I may not be able to participate because I don't know the details of this function, but I pray to the Lord as I know him, that my love for him will increase by seeing this man's love. So I said, wait a minute, that's interesting. That means I can encourage a person who's not in the movement to go pursue their own path of devotion. Let me check this. So I called Sadhu Damodar Maharaj Prabhu or Rupa Nuga Prabhu, Sasrup Maharaj. I can give you a list of all the people I called, and I asked one question, Hridayana Maharaj. I said, Maharajas, if a person of another faith prays to God, is there any benefit? And each one of them said, Prabhu, absolutely there's benefit. Absolutely. So I said, therefore, if I encourage them, if they're not interested in Krishna consciousness and I encourage them to follow their path, am I doing right or wrong? Because I want to be part of that. Prabhu is fine. Don't worry about that. That's fantastic. Like one night, Rita Anand was giving a Bhagavad Gita class in Atlanta, and someone said, Maharaj, because he was known for his erudition, he could defeat anybody. Maharaj, shouldn't we not defeat the Christians? He said, what? What are you talking about? If you can bring them to Krishna consciousness, fine, convince them. But if you defeat them, if you prove to them that their faith is wrong, but you don't bring them to Krishna consciousness, you've done a great disservice. They had some faith. Now you convince them that it was wrong, instead of showing them how to do it properly, as is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Don't try to discourage the mind of the so-called faithless persons. Act in such a way to show them how to engage in life in the proper way. Yat yada charti shrestha. So my point is, learning the impacts of all these things, modes of nature, and learning how to maneuver within this world. When you're not sure, always inquire, because the modes are affecting us. They're affecting the way we think, they're affecting what we say, and we want to make sure, because we're dealing with our eternal life. I had to keep saying that to myself. I'm not saying it to you, I'm saying it to me. We're dealing with eternal life here. This is not a small deal. You know, if you're still trying to figure out whether this is the right place to be, hey, go for it. We'll try to help you as much as we can. But for those who've come to this conclusion that I made the right decision, it's time to get busy. As Hridayana Maharaj said one time, at the point at which you realize the importance of this movement, no matter what you've done in the past, get busy now, right now, today. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, let the past sleep, ne'er the future dream at all, act with times that are with thee, and progress we shall call. Right now, this moment, this very moment, right now, 8:54, whatever time it is, what am I going to do? Am I going to try and get something from this discussion that I can use today to improve my spiritual life? Or am I just, maybe I'll just fall asleep and, maybe I'll do something else, So yes, anyway, I didn't mean to go so long on that, but you brought up a very interesting concept.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. And apologize for joining late.
No, don't apologize. You were doing service.
Thank you so much. Any questions from devotees? Any thoughts? Any clarification? Please go ahead. My husband's gonna jump right in.
Please accept my humble obeisances.
Please accept my humble obeisances.
Very nice class. So many points to take from. I have a question, but that will come later. I just want to talk about the points that I got from it.
Sure, please.
That you were saying that when you listen to a class, you look for things in terms of what that class points can help you. That was very, very important to me. I said, okay, all right. Now I listen to a class to listen to it and whatever I can remember, but I've never thought that it hasn't come out in the way you've put it. So I was, maybe I can learn something from it, maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, it is true that every class you will definitely get something out of it in the house. So it's wonderful. And I was going to ask about the move to nature, but I've already did the answer here. And then you talked about when people think about those who are not in the planet, who are not in this planet, maybe sometimes you think about demigods and so on. And there's a story, as soon as you said it, this story popped in my mind and I'd like to share it. This is not, it's an actual incident. This was Bhaktivinoda Maharaj in Alachua, I think it was Alachua, that he was preaching. And at that time, years back, people were so involved with the aliens, and I'm talking about not devotees, but non-devotees, talking about alien situation, and there was even a program on ABC television about that, just going on, UFOs and so on. So if somebody brought up a question about it, that, the aliens here on the planet, and I said, well, that's not a problem. Actually, in one sense, we're all aliens. Do we belong here? Anybody's bust out laughing because they hit them that, if you're in the material world, you're alien in the material world because your home is the spiritual world.
Wow.
That was the end of the discussion. I wanted to break that up. Anyway.
That's beautiful.
So my question is, sometimes our mind plays with us when it comes to taking instructions from senior devotees versus gurus. Because, and I know it's happened to me before, because sometimes your Diksha guru, it's like, and that goes on with a lot of devotees, actually, I do know that when the Diksha guru speaks to them, they see it as heavier than when the senior devotee speaks to them, even though maybe spiritual advice. Can you comment on that a little bit, just to put people's minds in, or in my mind for that matter, in the proper perspective?
That's an excellent observation / question, because you've observed it. It's a practical experience that we've all had. I have a different dilemma. I'm hearing from Srila Prabhupada. I'm hearing from my senior God brothers. I'm hearing from my peer God brothers and God sisters. And I'm also hearing from second generation. So should I accept what a second generation devotee says, or just categorically reject it because it's a second generation devotee? They're younger than me. I've been around almost 50 years, and this guy's been around for 2. Should I listen to him? Yes, if I have the intelligence to discern what is truth and what is maybe, I don't want to say speculation. I mean, most devotees don't necessarily speculate. They take a poetic license when they say certain things. I do it, we all do it. Kind of like a poetic license means we tell a story that we took from somewhere, we give an example that we made up. But Prabhupada gave some provisions for that. He said an analogy is good if it has many points of similarity. So if you want to give an analogy that you didn't hear from Prabhupada, from the Guru, you make sure it's got many points of similarity. Prabhupada said that's good. So when I listen based on what I understand philosophically, what I've read. Then if you, meaning anyone, my senior God brother, God sister, equal God brother, God sister, next generation, even a child. I'll give you an example. Sukadeva Prabhu's son, his youngest son, Adishesh. They were visiting my home one time. They were staying with me. And at that point, when I opened my little deity altar, it was actually a little place I had there. I just opened it up, offered my incense and prayers. And Adishesh, who's been trained by his father and mother, that you have to play Govindam. You don't live in the temple, that's fine. We have to play. They have elaborate arrangements to make sure Govindam is played just like in the temple. So this boy, since the age of 3 or 4, he's been doing that, and they've been training him. So when he came to my house and I wasn't playing Govinda, he said, Balabhadra, Prabhu, where's Govinda? Where's Govinda? You have to play Govinda. He's chastising me. He's probably 6 years old. Prabhu, where's Govinda? You have to play Govinda. Since that day, guess what Balabhadra does? I play Govinda. Even if I'm rushing, I play Govinda. Those little Adishesh, Arpan at that time, instructed me, as in the case of Sasutraj. When that Bhakta told him he was not chanting properly, he wrote a book about it. So if you know it to be truth, here's a statement that I've made. I don't know if I came up with it, but it's just an observation. Truth is truth. Now, suppose I hear the truth from a bum on the street. If I know what is truth, I know what he said was true. Suppose I hear it from a Mataji. If I know it's incumbent upon us, the onus of proof is upon us to know what is truth. So when I hear truth, I just accept it. Doesn't matter who it comes from. I heard truth from my old friend who used to sing with me in a group before I became a devotee. And I was joking with devotees yesterday. Prabhupada used the word divine about 6 times in the purport I was reading. I said the group I used to sing with was called the Young Divines, okay? So divine was like, So the guy who used to sing with me, who was a pure alcoholic, totally alcoholic, now is a minister for the last 30-some years. So I listened to one of his sermons, and my good friend Willie, he told his congregation, the problem is we don't go out enough and share the glories of the Lord. We need to go out and share the glories of the Lord. And when someone comes to our church, they should be so inspired. So here is the Christian minister that's inspiring me. My point again is, if I know what is truth, then I can recognize truth anywhere, whether it's a senior devotee, whether it's your guru. Prabhupada is my guru. Should I not listen to Parikshit? Should I not listen to Gita? Should I not listen to Anasuya? Should I not listen to Bhakta Xavier? Whoever, Suzanne. If you say something that's true, I will take it. And guess what? I'm going to use it. It's going to be in my heart. Like what Gita said on Sunday, it's freaking me out because it's like, it's in my brain now. Don't use that little finger to do other things while you're chanting. She's not Prabhupada disciple directly, but she spoke the truth. But also, if I don't hear the truth, how should I deal with that? If I hear you say something which is not accurate, how should I deal with that? That's another question. Let me put that question back out to all of you. If you hear a devotee in a class say something, maybe they were just over enthusiastic and maybe they got the words wrong, they maybe got the concept wrong, and how should you deal with that? Let me put that question out. Who? I see a hand
Hey,
raised.
Krishna. It happened to me. It happened to me. I found out later on, actually, the mistake was on my part. But this was in the middle of a lecture in Harrisburg Temple, and there was a devotee that was visiting. And so when I finished making a point from Chaitanya Charitamrita, he said, actually, Prabhu, the point that you made is not correct. And this is to the hearing of everybody. Okay, now obviously, it could be embarrassing. So he kept speaking, and when he finished, I was behind the microphone, so I was the one to speak. And all the time I started praying and said, how to handle this. Okay. So I went around the issue and spoke about other things that were pertaining to the lecture. And then I that one, because all the time I was praying my Guru, what should I do? What should I do? And in the end, the answer came. I said, all right, now I read from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is what I remember. And then he said it. And you may have read it, you've seen it differently. Obviously, we're not agreeing. And we can check back on the Shastra later. To see which one is okay. Then he nodded like that, okay. All right. And then that's how it ended. I said, we'll just look at it later. Hey, Krishna.
Very nice response. Anyone else? How should you react when you're in a class and you hear someone say something which is not exactly correct for whatever reason? Anyone else have any suggestions for us? Because, it's helpful.
I'm trying to think if that happened to me. I'm sure it did, because actually it did happen, but I hear the comments, or I shouldn't say comments, I hear the criticism after the fact. And I just say, thank you for sharing with me, and Hare Krishna, and that's it.
Yeah, but what if they are the ones who said something not exactly correct? How should you react when they say it?
Oh, Prabhu, I say I'll check with my seniors. If that's that, I always tell them that I said, I'm not sure about this. Let me just check with my seniors and I'll get back to you. And that has happened many times.
Yeah.
Even with the young people in my temple, when they wanted to change the logo for the temple on Facebook and YouTube, they had so many suggestions and they were pushing for an answer in 1 hour.
Right.
I said, no, you're going to wait. Let me check with my seniors. And they waited for a week and they were like, every day, Mataji, did he check? Mataji, did he check? I said, no, I'm waiting for a response. And I got the response. I said, this is a very sensitive issue, you know, because it's worldwide. So I said, let me check with my seniors and I'll get back to you. And in fact, this morning, Prabhu, interestingly, on Chandamani Swami's class, he was speaking on the importance of, it was actually, he was talking about the pastime of Damodar when Mother Yashoda binded Lord Krishna. And she was, somehow this topic came up with gurus giving names to disciples. And we've come to situations where one Mataji was asking, you know, but Maharaj, there are devotees that call me by my karmi name, even though I'm initiated, what should I do?
Mm.
You know, and these are from initiated devotees calling those who are initiated with the karmi names. He says, if it's non-devotees, I can answer, but devotees, why would they do that?
Right.
So he says, you know, you just, you know, nicely remind, but if they continue, then you just keep quiet. You know, and then I had that same question too, because that I've also experienced that many times. And I asked Maharaj, because I've been wanting to ask a senior, how do I address this? And he says, devotees, and he meant, you know, when we address each other with their karmi names and not devotee names, we're actually bringing them down. He used the word to the mundane and ordinary level.
Yeah.
So when devotees, I always tell them, let me check with the seniors. I said, and then they'll ask me, but who are your seniors? I said, I have a bunch, don't worry. You know, but that's how I tackle it, Prabhu.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Anybody else real quick? Any other thoughts?
We were trained by Bhakti Swami that once a person received initiation, their names were so important to us, and we referred to them right away. And it went on so much that at some point we go, what is their legal name again? We tend to forget. So this is actually the opposite, you know. We tend to forget what the legal name is. And some of my God family members, I don't remember the legal names now. I really don't.
Yeah.
You know, but that was from the training though. And yeah. I think of how Ajamil was saved, Ajamil. Had he not mentioned Narayan, his last son's name, and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Jamudulas would have got him. They really would have gotten him. So how important his spiritual name is when you get it, especially from the spiritual master. It also signifies a connection the spiritual master has with the disciple going forward. And so it's very important. Very, 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 very important. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'll pass it back to you, Anastasia.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. There's something. Okay, this is from Dear Krishna, because he was hosting it. So thank you so much, Dear Krishna, for hosting this.
Thank you.
He has a question, Prabhu. He says, when trying to share Krishna consciousness with others, is it okay to share personal examples? Sometimes I get a doubt that others might not always relate with my personal experience or might not be able to understand it since the experience of life is different. Very nice question.
Yeah, it depends on the audience. Like, for instance, the other day I was asked to make a little video for some youth, but the person didn't tell me she was talking about 5-year-olds. I thought she was talking about teenagers. So I gave examples corresponding to their life kind of experiences. And then she pointed out that that was really nice for me, but the person who I'm really trying to get to is like 5 years old. I said, oh my God, I would have given a whole different set of examples if I knew they were 5 years old. One time I was asked to give a class to some 5th graders by a friend of the temple. And boy, what a challenge that was. These are not devotees, these are just kids, you know. Wow, what a challenge. I had to find, so the only example I could figure out was Prahlad Maharaj. I had to try to tell that story in an interesting way, kind of thing. So it all depends on the audience as to what type of example. Like I give the example sometimes about my past meaning when I was a hippie and I smoked marijuana, but I give it in reference to Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, there's verse, I think it's 22. I can't remember exactly which verse now, to explain the power of what Bhagavad Gita can do to your life. I give my personal example, how I was smoking marijuana up to the point of the 3rd chapter in the Gita. That means I'm reading the Gita, still smoking marijuana, because no one told me not to. The temple devotees were not heavy. They just kept giving you prasadam. inviting you to this festival, that festival. If Vishnu John's Maharaj is coming, you'd like to come and see him. Great, but I'm still smoking marijuana. In the purport, Prabhupada says people tried to imitate Lord Shiva by smoking ganja, parentheses, marijuana. I was like, what did I just hear? And then he said, by doing that, they are calling death near. That moment I stopped smoking drugs, never again touched it, because I had been studying all the way up to that point, chanting up to that point, building my spiritual credits. So when I heard that instruction, I had enough spiritual credits to accept it. No one could stop me from smoking marijuana. I believed in it religiously from the Bible, Genesis 29, first chapter. I had convinced myself this is the right thing for my life until Prabhupada hit me. But he hit me after I had done some devotional service in the temple, reading and chanting, donating. See how powerful that is. So I give that example, personal example, but I gauge my audience. If it's a group of older Indian citizens, I don't give that example because they can't relate to that. But if I see some young people, some, young adults and all that, it's kind of cool to them. Yeah, it's kind of, Balabaji was a hippie, sure. Or the other day, Prabhupada said, that's why sometimes I like the hippies, because they have renounced everything. I said, what an interesting statement from Srila Prabhupada. So my point is, in speaking, they always recommend know your audience. So then when you give an example, try to give something that they can relate to. If they're all African Americans and you give an example of something which is out of that experience, they're not going to relate. They might be offended. If they're all white Americans and you give another kind of example, they might be offended. You follow? And if they're all older Indians, but then for us on a Sunday feast, hey, all kind of people are there. So you got Sunday feast lecture. Like I really appreciate what Mother Gita did on Sunday. She kept it very simple, very sweet, very relatable. Didn't go too many verses and too many this, that, all this stuff that nobody knows what you're talking about. Can't remember any of it. She just kept it to where you could remember a few things. That's the whole purpose. So I would say you can use examples. Make sure that you know your audience to a certain degree, and then pray to Krishna, please let my words have some impact on this group of devotees, including myself. And then Krishna will give you the words to say. Something like that, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Yes, he said, thank you, Prabhu. Yes, that was a very nice question there, Krishna. And thank you, Krishna, for hosting this. He's actually had a meeting, but that's why but I thank you for helping out when I need his help. Any questions from devotees, any thoughts, any clarification, any, comment? And if there isn't, we thank you all for joining us. And thank you so much, Balabhadra Prabhu, for taking this class. Vancha krapti bhyascha kripasinubhevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai, have a wonderful day.
You too, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Very